Now, I noticed just now, like these aren't clean. And all right, I'll save it for the thing. I'm not saying that critically.
No.
But I noticed before you washing an old record with soap and water in the sink. So I know you clean things, but you didn't clean these, and I'm curious as to the reason why.
You are my witness that I clean things.
Yes.
Martin.
Okay. If I have to go to a court in Connecticut and testify on your behalf for Julie.
President Roosevelt is the
Eagle has landed.
I have seen Greg clean things on several occasions. So to say that he never cleans things.
I can depose you. And on that note, welcome to Stories from the Attic. Here we are on location at an actual estate sale that hasn't actually started yet. If you can see the sign over my shoulder, it says opens at 10 a.m. So in about 15 or 20 minutes, people might start lining up and wondering, what the heck are we doing?
We are on the clock.
We're on the clock.
Move in here.
I am Greg Van Antwerp, your host, and my co-host is?
Martin Blanco.
Martin, thanks for joining me once again.
I'm thrilled to be here.
You know, that you blindly follow me wherever we go.
That's not true. When I'm following you, eyes open, 365 degree. What's falling down? Where's the sinkhole?
What's happening?
But I do follow you.
I'm trying to build up your trust so I can really trick you on a real super deep dig, and that's my promise.
The Blair Witch Project, Chapter 3, Greg and Martin.
The Blair Witch's estate sale.
It's like,
exactly.
There we go.
That's
that would be an interesting sketch.
That would be. Yeah. Well,
okay.
to make that a note. Well, it's recorded, so now you know. So today what we have is a kind of a sampling of the kinds of things that can be discovered in a house, even just during setup, but also during the sale. You know, the biggest challenge about doing an estate sale, and we're at this is the company Windy Cat's Estate Sales out of New Milford, Connecticut, and I often help them with their setup and their sales, and they will bring me in and say, Greg, there's the attic, go for it, and
have at it.
Have at it. And I relish in the opportunity to try and find something that with their limited time to set up, this is the biggest challenge, and why sometimes these sales can be scavenger hunts, is that you don't have enough time to actually find it all and price it all and set it all up. And so ultimately, if you come to an estate sale, you do get to history hunt no matter how organized or how much setup has been done. And that really is that makes it so much more fun. So these are, I'm going to show you a couple of things that I actually found, and you've already been looking at these things that are displayed like I'm going to say,
it's like a Whitman sampler of chocolates. Only I'm not going to eat these because.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was.
I know the way I was eyeing them. You were getting a little nervous.
Well, when I'm at a loss for words, boom, you fill in the gap.
Okay.
So perfectly. Yes, this is the Whitman sampler. Right, what we have here, which just look like simple panes of colored glass, are actually glass slides, and they're quite delicate. They are at easily 100 to 120 years old. They were. This is something known as, and you and I both recognize that these are magic lantern slides. And some of them are pretty easy to kind of figure out that they're not just one slide, but they're a series of stories within a piece of glass. And they have been painstakingly, I don't know how much pain it took to do this.
Let's say stakingly.
Yeah,
they were
stakingly,
not painstakingly,
right. Maybe,
stakingly.
Maybe pleasure-stakingly. I probably had fun doing these. But these designs and things, are basically things that craftsmen have through their artistry have put together with the idea in mind to tell a story through this medium of glass. And as magic lantern slides, they're called magic lantern slides because the actual unit that could have been actually kerosene fired, and then of course fired by early electricity.
Okay.
Yeah, really, the older ones, it was just a kerosene lamp.
Like you could burn down your house.
You could burn down your house.
Hey, let's watch some slides. One false move, one
if you were looking for barn burning entertainment on a Saturday night,
right,
this would be it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it truly. We can even show you a kerosene lamp. But basically, the light source would just open through essentially a shutter, and then it would display on a wall, a sheet, or probably not a very fancy screen at the time, but then you would slide it through and tell the story. Someone might play accompanying music at the time. This predates silent film, but it was basically a form of entertainment where people could gather around and kind of maybe interpret the story or do their own sort of mystery science theater to it. Just make up
sure, and make comments along like we do. Is what you're saying about perhaps playing music, is that speculation, logical speculation, or have you seen either discussions of this or illustrations of people doing this? What's your best thought on that?
Because photography itself is only, I want to say, not in its infancy, maybe it's in its toddlerhood, or maybe tweenness, that I've never actually seen a picture of someone watching a magic lantern slideshow. I mean, I'm sure it exists, but again, the problems with exposure of having a dark room with a bright source and trying to capture this, people enjoying this, would probably be pretty hard to cover.
This?
So it's possible that this whole medium of entertainment existed and no one was ever there. No, I'm sure people enjoyed these because these were made in the
if a tree falls in an empty woods, then it makes a sound, right?
These are made in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and you can still find them. And that was the thing, as I was looking through the basement of this house and opening up some older boxes and just looking through everything, sure enough, there were 6 of these slides just sitting there that haven't been yet discovered. And I was excited to find them, and they made it part of the sale. And so these will actually go into the sale today. How they will be priced is up to them, but they have gone for as little as $5 a slide and as much as $100 a slide. I'm sure that there are particular artists or styles. Some of these are hand painted.
Yep.
You were talking about their filth, when you talk about filth, Martin, that's when I get excited.
I wasn't being critical. I was just noticing that there is some residue on these.
Right. You know, the thing is...
Understandably so,
right,
given their age. I should look so good at 120.
Honestly, when I found these, they were filthy.
Yeah.
And they were like, you couldn't, I mean, there was just so much of the years of dust and whatever. And so when they asked me to take a picture of them so they can put them on the site so we can offer them for sale, I was like, I brought them back home and I'm like, oh, I'll just clean these. Oh wait, I have to be careful.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with glass negatives or even celluloid negatives. You know, there's a side in which the emulsion is on, where the actual printed. By the way, the set dressing of leaves was very nicely put together.
Very impressed how you've timed it that the leaves come in every 3 minutes or so, and I'm impressed.
And those are vintage leaves that have been aged. Anyway, so I had to clean these, but I could only clean one side. So when you attack me for saying that they're filthy, they are actually
sensitive, aren't we, Gregory?
Yeah, the side that they're most filthy on is the side that the actual print has been laid on, and I was too nervous to even test one and go, well, there's 6 slides here. If I just wipe off some bleach off the emulsion and just turn one into a single piece of glass, pane of glass. Well, no, I careful, so careful.
Especially since they're not yours.
And right, that would have something to do with it.
I suppose, like, one could go down to, let's say, the Museum of the Moving Image or something.
Right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. And that there are experts. There are, curators and restorers and whatnot, and they would know just what to do. They'd know the right chemical emulsion. They'd be wearing gloves. They know not just any brush. No, it has to be this brush, camel hair, not horse hair, whatever it is. And then, and they would know what to do.
In New York, there probably is something akin to Silicon Valley, but in maybe in the Manhattan Valley, where that these can be actually cleaned up and restored in some cases, because if they're not stored properly, air will get underneath some of the emulsion and it will bubble off, or they'll just dry off. Sure. These are incredibly good condition for the age that they likely are. So they're a real neat discovery, and again, something that is what makes estate sales, treasure hunting, history hunting, so attainable to anybody who wants to try and preserve history. You can go out to almost any sale. It doesn't have to be an estate sale, and you can find something as cool as this, and often pay very little for it, and have a really unique piece of history.
I suspect. So cool. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you went to some place that identified itself as a tag sale as opposed to an estate sale,
right?
again, you don't know exactly what the contents are, but you're more likely to maybe find something at a larger bargain because people may not know what the value of different things are. Not even that you want to take advantage of them, but they have different goals. Their goals is
get rid of it
and look at how much money I can make in the aggregate. And if people in a tag sale, if they had something that they thought was worth something, maybe they would take that separately to auction. So if this is your jam, you might find something.
Exactly. If you have an interest in old media, if you have an interest in records, whatever your interest is, could be salt shakers. Odds are any sale that you go to, you may find that someone has not just devalued it just because they don't know what it is, but they just don't want to throw it away.
Yeah.
They just want to see it go to a good home.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily
it goes to a loving family.
They're not looking to break the bank on their estate sale, tag sale. They're just looking actually to not have to send these gems into a dumpster, which again is sometimes the only choice, which is why we have to get out there and look. As
a sidebar, but you brought back a very tender memory for me when we lived in Maryland. So we're now talking 2002, 2003. My son was a couple of years old. We went to a tag sale in Bethesda, and I just bought, for like $3, a box of stuff. And what did they have? Little Walt Disney figurines.
Right.
There was a cassette tape, remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Of Disney's Greatest Hits Volume 2.
Right.
And there were some toy cars in there.
Right.
So I would just say, best couple dollars I ever spent. That cassette, we got so much play out of and so much enjoyment in the car because our automobile used to have that. We eventually bought the CD version of it because we needed to preserve it.
It's funny that you say that because I was at a tag sale and I know exactly the house and I don't know exactly the year I bought it, but I bought it had to be maybe even before my daughter was born. I bought a Fisher-Price cassette player with the little microphone.
Yeah.
Now, that
Toy
I
Story.
bought actually when I think my wife and I were dating. I just thought it was just really super cute, and I love audio equipment anyway. And, and I'm like, really? I haven't seen this since I was, It's like, and I bought it. And actually, if you were to watch Julie and mine wedding video, we actually have it there, and the best man makes his announcement using that.
I love it.
And then now my daughter has it up at college.
And she has it,
It was somebody else's. It was loved by them. It was sold at a tag sale, and now it's...
This is the plot of Toy Story 5, right here. But yeah.
This second story that we have, Martin, is just as interesting in that it's another item that was found inside the house, and sometimes we find personal items. And while we don't want to share personal history or air people's dirty or even clean laundry, sometimes.
Can we air their clean laundry? Is there something ethically wrong about that?
In this case, I think we are airing clean laundry.
Okay.
But the really good news about this is this is a piece that was found. The family probably didn't know that it was there, and it's not going to be sold. It's going to be returned to the family. It's going to go back into their personal items because, we're almost 95% sure that they didn't intend for it to go, again, with all the other detritus that gets left over when you clear out a house. You can't keep it all, but they may not have realized that they threw out a very interesting piece of history. And so what we have is a family member who we will not name, but we have a spiral composition notebook, and that notebook is really cool because the font and the style of these kind of composition books, they may still exist now, but they're definitely a mid-century item. This is something, and it's in beautiful condition. But what's even better is that it is actually a journal of this young person's trip. Speaking of Italy. But we're not speaking of it.
No,
we're speaking of France.
Italian adjacent.
Because at first I thought it was a military diary, and now it turns out that it's not a military diary. It is actually a diary of this student's journey as a Boy Scout to the International Boy Scout Jamboree in 1947 to France. Which
c'est bon.
You were a Boy Scout.
Briefly, yes. I was a Cub Scout.
I was forced to be a Boy. I was a Boy Scout.
You were forced to.
Yeah, I was forced. Well, I was a Cub Scout, and then I became a Weeblo.
Yeah.
And that I thought was a terrible marketing idea, and I spent about
terrible name.
6 months trying to rename that. Yeah. Of course, Weeblo stands for We'll Be Loyal Scouts.
Yes.
Which still is a horrible name.
Yeah.
You could have just called us Killer Wolves or Attacking Cougars, but no, Weeblo. And I was like, that's not cool. Sorry, Boy Scouts. I'm glad they're accepting girls into the Scouts now because they do need a kind of a shot in the arm to boost their numbers. So please join the Scouts. It's very much worth it. But once upon a time, if you joined the Scouts, there were international Scout jamborees. And if I don't know, Martin, do you feel like you want to read?
Sure.
See if you can get through. It's again handwritten.
With decent penmanship and some clarity.
Decent penmanship and
I think, and I perused it. It's interesting how it starts and then where it ends. It's really great. So, Saturday, July 19th, arrived at Camp Kilmer around 4:35. Had a physical checkup, and barracks were assigned. We were in barracks, 1054 upstairs. Had chow and unpacked. Got to sleep around 11:30 p.m. Second troop to arrive. Now, to your point, that's the first thing I read. I'm like, okay, I am not thinking the Boy Scouts.
Right, we're
I'm
thinking
like,
military.
Yeah, Camp Kilmer. Right. They had a physical.
Yeah, right.
Okay, they had chow. Okay. The next day, Sunday, July 20th, woke about 6:15. Had chow, and then explored the camp after church. We were chased out of the wax area because they were off limits. It was like, boys will be boys.
Again, sounds like the military.
Yes, absolutely. The rest of the troops started to come in, had dinner and supper, and then we marched to the Kilmer Bowl. Now, they had dinner and supper. Love that. Yeah. Okay. We had a good,
So this is a fantastic, well, first, I love how you're reading the very first pages because this is how it starts.
Yeah.
And
I got to do one more thing. We have a good band from Madison, Wisconsin. Colonel Duffy said we could have the run of the camp. Again, Colonel Duffy, right? Yeah, so I was in Cub Scouts, Webelos, 1 year Boy Scouts.
Right.
No one was ever Colonel A. It was like, Mr. Dorr, right? Mr. Bloom. These were the, all right. Arose at 6:30, had chow. They had in France, I don't know if they call it chow. I think you would.
Here's the thing. I don't think they're not in France at this point.
Okay.
They have yet to get on the ship.
They're in Camp Kilmer. Camp Kilmer's American.
Probably traveling by steamship.
You're right.
And the
That's
physical.
Interesting.
And the physical is likely inoculations so that they're protected.
You're going on a ship, right? And that's like a petri dish, right?
Yeah,
so anything. So.
Sorry to the shipping industry, by the way. Anyway,
okay. And there wouldn't be a wax area in France and whatever. Okay.
Right. Well.
All right. Up here we go in August. Up at 7:15. Washed and had breakfast. Saw Hick in the morning. Hick is a friend. Yeah. Had a boat drill at 2:00. Sea is getting rougher. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So there's all that. So as you said, it's interesting. You had me say, look at how it concludes, right? So on the last page, right?
Wait a second. So they have a great time at this jamboree. They meet a lot of scouts.
I will say that.
That's okay. It's okay. We're just briefly going through it. They meet a lot of scouts from other countries. Italy, of course, France as their host, and then from the British Isles. And so they have this fantastic time and have to put on a play and perform themselves and there's a lot of camaraderie and this is 1947. This is just after
the war.
After the war. So they're probably seeing damage to the cities of France as they're traveling and getting a real sense of that. Now before I knew this was a Scout Jamboree and I didn't know what year it was, I'm like, they're on a ship.
Yeah,
and they're soldiers. Are
right.
They worried
Where are they
about,
going? Yeah.
Are they worried about submarines?
Yeah.
Are they worried? What are they worried about?
And the U-boats.
Yeah,
right?
U-boats, exactly. And so they it seems like they have a good time. But one thing I notice is that as it goes through, the penmanship starts to go down.
He switches to pencil, right?
The penmanship gets a little bit worse, and it seems things are getting a little stressed. But I've now realized they're on their way back. So read some of the last entries there, Martin,
really interesting.
Before we wrap it up here.
Okay.
As people are arriving at the sale, this is they're piling up behind us, which is fantastic. It's the way it should happen. It's a beautiful day for a sale.
August 20, up at 6:30, coffee and a piece of bread for breakfast. We then went on a sightseeing tour of the Cathedral of Chartres, then to Versailles to see the palace. At evening, we went to the opera, to the Magic Flute. I mean, how fantastic. First of all, 16-year-old, right?
Yeah.
They've seen Chartres. They went to, I'm going to guess, the Paris Opera. and they saw Mozart's The Magic Flute.
Right.
What's so wonderful is they're doing things that bring them back in time. But if I was to go to Paris today, and I just might, Magic Flute might be in rep. It's in rep in New York at the Metropolitan Opera, right?
Right.
Versailles is still there. These are great. August 21, saw Paris. 4 of us went to the Louvre, saw the Mona Lisa, then to the Eiffel Tower, Arc de Triomphe, Sacré-Cœur. In the evening, the Carnival des Spectres, packed and ready for the boat. So that's how they ended. I mean, what a wonderful opportunity. Post-war, there might have been a hunger to see these things because they've been in the news, but now they're open to the world again. Well, and if we go to Paris, and this is what we want to do.
Right. And basically post-war, think about it, all the maybe the scenes of destruction and bombing and everything, and you wonder if you're ever going to actually get to travel to Europe. Does it still exist? Is it just a wasteland?
Yeah.
And so the opportunity to again become kind of people of citizens of the planet again is really a great opportunity, and such a young age to feel worldly.
Yeah.
When you've been so secluded.
Yes. Yeah.
And worried about are you going to be old enough to then go fight in the war if it doesn't end? So this is really, in a way, this is a great relief and a release for these young minds to be able to go back to some kind of normalcy, and that's really great. But not everything kind of finished up perfectly, right, Martin?
I mean, you're teasing
the very last
you
entry.
go to the last entry, and it went to the last. There's 2 last entries. But the real last entry, the other one I think is a mistake. On the last page is everyone is sick. Sick of all the good French food and the French wine.
Well,
no, but they were together. They were at a jamboree, petri dish. Everyone
they
got
wore themselves out over might have been a 2-week period, maybe longer. And then, of course, getting back on the ship when and they made it over, and it was a little rough and a little tough on some people, but the trip back might have been a little more stormy, and unfortunately, everyone kind of collapsed.
Tout le monde est mal.
Yeah, right.
Très très mal. By the way, that is the extent of my French. Tout le monde très très mal. That's all. That's
ça
all
va
I know.
bien, ça va bien.
So,
But this is going to go back to the family because I think it's just an absolute rare gem, and I hope they appreciate it. I'm sure they will. But you never know. I mean, again, it's always one of these things where sometimes it's time for things to move on.
Yeah.
And just like
there's no connection. There's no interest. Yeah.
Exactly right. And it is actually time for us to move on. It's been great having you on in this front yard in this beautiful.
It's November. It's 75 degrees. Everything's perfectly normal.
Everything's peachy. If the peaches haven't already been picked.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for joining me on the show today.
My pleasure,
Martin.
Greg. This is great.
This is great fun, and we'll see you next time on Stories from the Attic.
Thanks
a
time.
lot.
Bye-bye.
President Roosevelt is the